Amplifying Voices from development perspectives and field Fisher.
Welcome to the 6th episode of our Amplifying Voices podcast series. In this episode, we are joined by Rasha. Rasha gives a heartfelt account of the circumstances which forced her to leave Syria. She shares this journey with her family and accounts how the family unit provided support and assurance along the way. Finally, she details how her hard work and diligence has allowed her to continue her education now in Ireland. You're very welcome, everyone, to our next podcast in our Amplifying Voices series. I'm very, very privileged to be joined by Rasha today. Rasha has an amazing story to share with us. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Rasha. And Rasha, please tell us a little bit about the story and then tell us the story itself, please.
First of all, thank you so much, Paul and Maria, for having me today. And it's a pleasure for me to share my story with you guys, which is a real story of my own life for the journey from Syria to Lebanon to here. So my story title is Looking for Life. Everything becomes missing for her. Her smile, her sadness for the separation of the homeland and the beloved ones, or even her happiness at receiving news that should make her fly in the air and change the features of her sad face. Everything has become incomplete, nothing can complete it, and nothing can accommodate it. The war left nothing untouched. It destroyed the stone, the people, and even the memories of the beloved ones and friends. They left their homeland as if their souls were separated from their bodies and stuck to those ruined walls. They silently left as if they were the living dead, but the eyes are still chasing the shadow of absence, hoping they return one day. On that horizon, at the other end of the world, they left their belongings, a part of them. They didn't say goodbye to the neighbor's tears, and the street cat was still waiting for the cheese it used to every day. Here, a bereaved mother looks at the windows in anticipation of the return of her child, who went out years ago and hasn't returned yet. There, an old man whose threats of his wool dress are still waving the laughter of his children and his wife, who died under the rubble caused by iron and fire. The ruins of that country were a witness of the greatness of the emperors who once ruled the world, and that soil perfumed the feet of the saints and prophets who passed through and lived in it. No one drank of its water, but returned to it after a while. How it not be that, where a clear mist quenches the hearts and thirst of poets and singers, and in its sea all the stories are hidden, where lovers whisper and converse in the moonlight. Everyone speaks one language and one dialect. The elder empathizes with the younger, and no one has never dared to prejudice their lives or interface with their fate. People of that land were blessed with warmth and love, a paradise that God chose to be a home to nurture and enjoy its bounties. And no one dictates who governs them, and no one draws a roadmap for them. Here, the first cities in history were established, and here a story began to be written. But their lives were nothing but a mirage, and the truth is that there was an ogre, who they were oblivious to, swallowing the ground under their feet and nibbling it little by little until it became shifting sand that swallowed up their children and took them forever. The features of the fatal began to appear little by little. Everything seemed different than before, as if a destroyer hurricane blew, tearing apart everything that stood in its way. To tip the scales of everything too far in its own way and make it easier for the dirty genie who swimmed the earth and those on it, as if it was a legacy from his father. The streets and alleys were covered with iron and turned from places full of life and joy to funerals and places of condolence. Even the walls cried the hanging pictures of martyrs. The homes are sad and dilapidated, and the minarets embraced the church bells in a suspicious and deadly silence. Clouds of smoke floated in the air, and the soil was choked with scattered lead caddies, and a new grey age declared war. Rasha's father could not bear to see the young men among his children being killed one by one, and nightmares began to haunt him. And at the speed of the wind, they left the country and left everything behind. Rasha and her family's eyes were staring at the sky in panic. The torrent of bullets did not stop raining down on the neighborhood and its safe residents, and the rocket launchers did not differentiate any land that fell on. The family refused to bid farewell to the neighbors, hoping for a return soon. They took what they could of necessities and things and set out in their car to the unknown. The black clouds overlapped with Russia's tears that never dried. She was cuddling her stuffed teddy with one hand, and she intertwined her fingers with her only brother's fingers with the other. The earth was expanding with them, little by little, away from their house until they became a point in the horizon. They were received by their good relative, Uncle Imad, at his home in the Lebanese capital, Beirut. He was always generous and loving. Perhaps he relieved them of the trouble of the arduous journey. When their first night out of the country was over, Pasha's father headed to Tripoli in search of a small apartment until the war ended. Soon, the family members began their journey in search of ways of life they were ignorant of. By the grace of God, Rasha's parents were fortunate enough to work in one of the community schools. As for her, she joins the university to complete her studies in the Department of Arabic Language and Literature, after failing to complete second year due to the conflict conditions in her homeland. As for her brother, the circumstances didn't allow him to complete his studies in mechanical engineering, which he had begun at home due to the high cost of living in the new country. Instead, he worked hard in a shop, hoping things would improve and he would go back to his university. The situation in the new country wasn't better than at home. All family members had to work so that they could continue and maintain the standard of life they had always been accustomed to. While on a visit to the school where her parents work, Rasha met a young child and his mother, who came to complain about the method of a teacher in teaching her son the origins of language and communication. Then only she approached the mother with a great interest, and a nice conversation took place between them. The mother offered Rasha to give her son additional hours after school to support him and improve his level. The idea was a little scary, as long as the teacher's daughter was well aware of the hardship the teacher goes through in getting the information to the students smoothly. Either he becomes a Lumini, Firas Bacon, and an example of life, or he becomes a nightmare. Hence, the student hates the school and the teachers. She tried to keep her words locked in the throat, but the lips betrayed her. She found her hands shaking the mother's hands with a great enthusiasm. Her feelings were confused in a terrible mixture between the joy of her first job opportunity and her sense of responsibility towards that young child. Her studies at the university made her a distinguished girl who loved science and acquiring knowledge, and was tempted by every new experience. But she did not know that her favorite hobby of learning the English language might turn into a good source of income for her and make her that young teacher who goes to the classes of her young students with all passion and love. It continued in that state for years, with its sweetness and bitterness. And when every storm hit the small family's life, that family proved they deserve life until a new opportunity appeared on the horizon. A new country Finally, quiet, pleasant place whose people gathered all the simplicity, goodness, and kindness. For Russia, Ireland was the safe haven and a new home that surrounded her with the warmth and security she had missed for years. But what about her undergraduate studies? She used to hear more about wars more than she read about them. Perhaps the sights of blood and destruction didn't equal her. When fate wanted Ireland to be her alternative homeland, her father told her about the horrors of the war that the people of this country had suffered, which crushed everything and kidnapped the lives of fine young men. She listened well to him, as he was a high level follower of international political news, and by virtue of his work as a university lecturer and educator, he assured her that was a common denominator between the people of this country and the people of their lost mother country. And she had a contradictory feeling based on something strange and heartbreaking together. Is it reasonable that wars and tragedies bring people together and unite them? Yes, this happened after the two world wars. The peoples returned, united, forgot their pain, and put their interests ahead of enmities and revenge, so that life could continue. She had always had that idea and even attracted her and made her feel safe that the people of this beautiful country had suffered the scourge of war in the 80s of the last century. They understand the meaning of a person fleeing his homeland, leaving all his memories and relatives, forgetting the places he passed and passing by, abandoning his friends, and transcending the terrifying growth of a flight that was throwing the lava of death and distributing the losses equally among all. A new life and a new faces are still surrounded by many question marks, chasing the scarf that she wears on her head. Faces may smile at her with love and may not make her feel welcome at times or surprised at other times. Perhaps not for her person, but for their ignorance of her culture and environment. She would yearn for any joy, see the homeland in all the streets and the faces of the people, looking for friends who had been separated from her by the war. Russia did not despair of striving to build a new future for her life, despite all the frustrations that came her way, perhaps the first of which was the resumption of her university studies, the ultimate and only goal, for which she lived her life for. A year after arriving in the country, Rasha enrolled in a new college of further education to do business administration, as Irish law didn't help her to obtain government support, or else she had to pay the tuition fees as an international student. It was a somewhat harsh period, and it wasn't without challenges. But with a great courage, it withstood that hurricane and established her foundations in the ground. She continued her studies in pharmaceuticals at University of Cork. She had the opportunity to get a short work experience as part of her studies from time to time. She did not stop training in any field that opened the way for her to learn new skills. As for information technology, the University of Dublin was the opportunity of a lifetime when a friend sent her a link that includes a scholarship, and he did not know at that time it was the world for her. On the orientation day, the university staff gave her a warm welcome and showered her with love. Everything was neat and orderly, and each of the university officials gave a speech welcoming the new students. Only then she did feel that she had taken back the life that the war had stolen from her. She had a part-time desk job in a community organization, but studying wasn't an easy burden when it met with work. She could hardly breathe amid all these responsibilities, but with great happiness she managed to success, and she is now in her third year, waiting for the arrival of the last academic year, and eager to wear the graduation gown and join her brother who preceded her and graduated from the University of Limerick with honors for the specialty biomedical engineering. There is nothing good in war except for its end, and nothing gives us hope other than having a goal that we can uproot from the islets of the circumstances. No matter how dire, the homeland remains precious, and the Mother Earth remains a part of the soul. If it goes, the soul goes with it, and precise. The little family had no choice but to leave, either clinging to their land to death or leaving everything behind in search for life. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Rasha. Your story is I know you've prepared it in advance for this podcast, and it's beautifully written. And there's some very beautiful use of language for what was obviously a very challenging situation for your family and many others during the war, but really paints a poignant picture for me in my mind, and it was beautifully told. So firstly, thank you very much for sharing that story with us. It's very clear in the story that family plays a huge part in your journey, and also continues to play a huge part in your life. And I suppose a question I have hearing that story was, how important was it for you taking that very difficult journey to Ireland with your family, and how were you able to support each other, and I suppose keep each other feeling hopeful and optimistic?
Well, I'd say, if you were like a migrant, or like if you were, let's say, a stranger in a new society, like life won't be perfect for you, and definitely loads of difficult circumstances and the challenges would be like surrounding you all around. But when you have a very supportive and understanding family, that could maybe ease your journey in life. They could, support you, give you all the love that you want, whatever you were disappointed, or whatever like obstacles you were facing, they'll be there for you to advise you. So I'd say support, love, and I am a Muslim, and in religion, like you will need to be optimistic because you know that there is always God for you. God will be protecting you and will be showing you the right place. And if that place or that door was blocked in your way, so you should know that that door like wouldn't be for you. You will need to wait until the good opportunity appears.
Absolutely. And when you were telling your story, I was thinking about an opportunity that you encountered when you were in Lebanon, and this is your story, and you're certainly the hero of it. And as you know, we've spoken a lot privately about the hero's journey, and that idea of a call to adventure. And I see very much a call to adventure when you were speaking to the woman, and she offered you some extra hours to help her child with the English language, and you had this decision: will I take this opportunity, or will I not take it, because it's a good opportunity, but there's responsibility. And then you weren't sure until the last minute, and then you took that opportunity. I guess a question I have is, what made you instinctively make that decision to say, yes, I'm going to take this opportunity, I will take this challenge, and respond positively to this call to adventure?
Yeah, as I mentioned in the story, as a teacher's daughter, I am in the picture. I know how the teacher really suffers, from teaching the children. It's just because it is really a huge responsibility. You could deal with it. But on the other hand, I was in the place that I could see the impact of my father's on those children, on those students. I still remember like when we were home, I'd be like with my dad in the street, and he would be like meeting his old students. And he will find out then like they become doctors, engineers, like very VIP people in the society, which had really it had an impact on me as well. I was so proud of my dad because I believe that the teacher make all the people in the society, not only the doctors, not only the factors, not only the solicitors, all kinds of people in the society. So this has encouraged me to take the challenge and to be a part of that opportunity.
I think that's the word, generation, and what teachers have done for years. They've passed knowledge down through the generations, and your dad sounds like a really wise man who's passed a lot of knowledge and skills and information to you that you have shared then in that particular example. He also passed some knowledge and information about Ireland before you guys arrived, and it allowed you to have that sense of connection even before arriving, because seeing some similarities and possibly some historical challenges that were faced within Ireland. And of course, as you quite rightly mentioned, there's many people who, when you meet them, they have a smile and are quite warm. But of course, there's the dark side sometimes where people maybe aren't so warm or welcoming. And as you mentioned in your story, from your perspective, that perhaps this could be just a little bit of lack of knowledge around your culture and tradition. I suppose, given this platform that you have, is there anything you would like to say to people who maybe aren't so warm and friendly, to maybe perhaps increase their knowledge? That, of course, having gotten to know you through this process, I know that we have a wonderful young woman arriving to our country who's so much to offer everyone. So I'm just wondering, is there anything that you would like to say to people who maybe at the minute aren't so warm for whatever reason?
I would tell the people who, as what you just said, they have a lack of understanding of the other cultures. I would say people, you look to the United States of America. Nothing could build the United States of America, but the differentiate between cultures, races. Even us in Syria, we all speak one language, and we're all like one. Let's say one nation, okay? But we do have some different races, like we have the Syrians, we have the Kurdish, and too many other races as well. What really could build up all the creativity in the society. So I'd say don't be just ignorant, don't be just very isolated, if you know what I mean. If you maybe learn more about the other part, you might love him. You might learn from him. You might, I'd say, swap knowledge. And this is how humanity goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes a little bit back to your story about accepting your call to adventure, with teaching the young boy in Lebanon, because there was a little bit of a fear of the unknown there for you. And I mean, I guess your message to some people is to not be afraid of the unknown, and to learn a bit more about the cultures and traditions, and you probably will find there's a lot more in common than there is different. So you're very, very close to graduating now, which is great. I mean, a longer journey, of course, than you would have expected, but the journey of that particular part of your life is coming towards completion. What's next? What's the hopes for the future after this?
Yeah, definitely getting a good job. And like my expectations won't stop at this level. The course that I'm doing at the moment is a level 7, is a higher diploma level 7 degree at the third year. However, the students can at any stage complete until they get their Bachelor of Sciences in Management of Information Technology. But I would prefer to stop at this level and continue my level 8 in another field, which is management. I had really a good understanding of business from my experience in the further education college, and even in this college here at the moment. I have some modules that covers this aspect, let's say, to complete my education to the level 8 until having like a level 8 degree in management, and also getting a very good job. And at the moment, I'm looking for for a car. That's just, let's say, the long term. I have long-term goals, which is having my own business and launching my own book.
Lots of plans, both short term and long term. Yeah. The car, I mean, from someone who now has been driving a long time, be careful what you wish for, because there's a lot of crazy people on the road. That's that sounds great. And yeah, I mean, the book, I mean, very, very interested by that idea, because based on the way you've kind of very quickly but very, very beautifully put your own story together and told it today for us. Looking for, you might have someone who'll be first in line to purchase a book if you write it. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I suppose, kind of finishing up our conversation, I mean, your story is full of many thought-provoking kind of moments and many lessons and messages. I suppose, what's the one message, if I were to ask you, that you would really like our listeners to pay attention to?
It's just one sentence: don't stop chasing your dreams, whatever happened. Because it's something very funny in life. If you want something so hard, so you'll get it at the end. Just if you hesitate to get it.
And I think I would agree with that one, based on the story, because it's just filled with resilience, with perseverance, with the drive to succeed, and it seems like you have a nice plan and a nice pathway, and I really wish you the best of luck in pursuing all these plans, the cars, the book, the next part of your education. I feel very honored to have spoken to you today, and to hear your story. And yeah, I have no doubt that the people listening will take some really great inspiration from it. So thank you so much, Rasha, for your openness, your honesty, your beautiful way with words, and for just for being you. And yeah, thanks so much again.
No, guys. I would say thank you, first of all, for giving me this opportunity to share my story. Everyone knows what is going on in his life, but sometimes you will need to be, let's say, that someone who's looking at you, if you know what I mean. You'll be like a stranger who's looking at your story, so that you could maybe think of that in your life. Maybe you could change this, or you could change that, if you know what I mean. And this is what you did to me today. So I'd say thank you for that.
Thank you for listening. In our next podcast, Field Fisher's legal team will share with us the challenges that refugees faced regarding family reunification and accessing proper accommodation in Ireland. See you the next time. Amplifying Voices from Development Perspectives and Field Fisher.